He is a writer, editor, proofreader,
Oh my God.
writing center specialist, TESOL and TEFL instructor. He is a critical discourse analyst and the critical discourse analysis practitioner. Dr. Assaiqeli is or has worked as an assistant professor at different local universities in Gaza Strip, particularly in Al-Aqsa University, Islamic University of Gaza, Gaza University, and he also worked as a translator and an editor-in-chief in the Center of Postgraduate Studies in Kuala Lumpur, International Islamic University of Malaysia. He has published, a considerable number of articles in local and in international journals. So Dr. Assaiqeli is presenting here on the role of discourse in the decolonization of Palestine, a scriptural perspective. Hopefully the presenters will, present within the time limits. So the floor is yours, Dr. Aladdin. Thank you in advance.
Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa amma ba'd. Thank you, Dr. Jabir, for this golden opportunity, for this invitation to participate in this seminal event. Regardless of where you are, dear colleagues, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Role of discourse in the decolonization of Palestine, in the liberation of Palestine from a scriptural perspective. From a scriptural perspective, decolonization of Palestine. So this implies, to begin with, that the liberation of Palestine is inevitable. It's a Quranic scriptural inevitability. Discourse is a key to both colonialism, as we have seen, and the process of becoming emancipated from the strictures of foreign domination. So discourse can play two roles here. Can aid colonization and can help end colonization. And so before I talk about the role of discourse in the decolonization of Palestine, discourse as being the first step in a three-step process to the liberation of mandatory Palestine and the end of this colonialist apartheid regime in the Holy Land, I'd like first to shed some light on the role discourse plays in sustaining, or before that, enacting and then sustaining domination, and the role it played in the Zionist colonization of Palestine in particular. And so I have four subtopics or themes. The first one is the role of discourse in colonization and domination. Second, role of discourse in the colonization of Palestine. Third, role of discourse in the decolonization of Palestine, the forthcoming liberation, God willing. And finally, our role in the first step to liberation, discourse. So role of discourse in colonization and domination, to begin with. Domination and oppression take place in linguistic forms. They are discursively forged, discursively enacted, and exercised, reproduced and legitimated, sustained and perpetuated. Language is a medium of domination and social force. Language does not only reflect reality, but also shape and transform reality. Discourse is then constitutive of reality. Social realities are discursively, linguistically constructed. The project of European imperialism, the project of European political domination or military imperialism from the 16th to the 20th century began with discourse. Nations of the world in Africa, Asia, and Latin America were occupied and exploited by colonial powers under the linguistic guise of bringing enlightenment and civilization, under the guise of misleading euphemistic concepts or discourses such as white man's duty towards these savages in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Misleading concepts or discourses such as religious obligation towards these people, colonialism, protectionism, mandate, tutelage, Taliban, Saddam Hussein, weapons of mass destruction, terrorism, Islamophobia, Islamic State, Daesh, etc., etc. The whole concept of Orient or the East versus Occident or West, this whole concept was ideological, East versus West, rather than geographical. It was a discursive construct. It was to pave the way to exogenous domination. East, backward East, and civilized West. So it was a discursive construct made to pave the way to the West to colonize the East. In the 21st century, the US invasion of Iraq began also with discourse. Despite being a superpower, the US could not invade and occupy Iraq overnight. It took at least a year for the US to discursively prepare for its military invasion and occupation of Iraq later on. And so before guns were fired and bombs started falling on Iraq or any occupied nation now or in the past, words committed the first act of war. As much as it is a war in the traditional sense, it is a war of words, media war. The very concept of colonialism, if we ponder over it for a minute, was a discursive stratagem to invade and occupy much of the globe. If we look at the term, the concept, colonialism quickly, colonialism comes from the Latin word colonia, which means settlement or farm, from colonus, farmer or settler, from the Latin verb colere, meaning to cultivate. And so the impression is that we are coming to you to help cultivate your land, to help construct your land. Colonialism, giving you the impression of being positive, coming to you to help you to construct your land, to cultivate your desert land. The same goes with mandate and the protectionism and the tutelage. For example, people realized that colonialism was nothing but ugly occupation. They resisted occupation, colonialism, and so Machiavellians devised a new term, mandate. Palestine, by the way, was called under the British mandate in 1922, came under British mandate. So again, the word mandate was a discursive ploy or a stratagem for ugly occupation, military occupation. Mandate gives you the impression that we are representing you. We are representing you to help you. And when people again discovered that mandate was nothing but again occupation, so they changed the term to protectionism. We're coming to protect you. So we talk about the French protectorate here in Africa, British protectorate in Asia. We're coming to protect you. But again, when people discovered that this was nothing but again a ploy, they changed the term to tutelage and so on and so forth. So discourse has been central to colonization since its early days. It is worth noting that the Quran has referred to the role and power of discourse in the struggle between the truth and the forces of darkness. In chapter 61, verse 8, for example, God says, They want to extinguish God's guiding light with their, can you imagine with what? They want to extinguish God's guiding light with their discourse. The literal word in Arabic, with their mouth. Mouth here meaning language, meaning media, meaning discourse. And so God did not refer to these, evil forces as using, military, for example, arsenal or military machinery. They want to extinguish, to put out God's light using discourse, using media, tarnishing, the believers as being terrorists. So they're not using, God did not mention weapons here, traditional weapons or weaponry. God mentioned discourse as their tool to extinguish his light. Now let me move on to the second subtopic, and that is role of discourse in the colonization of Palestine in particular. Discourse was instrumental in carrying out the Zionist enterprise in Palestine and the ultimate de facto creation of the State of Israel in Palestine in 1948. Origins of the Zionist colonial settler enterprise in Palestine go back to 1896, more than 100 years ago. In 1896, Theodor Herzl, father of the State of Israel, as they call him, wrote Der Judenstaat in German, the equivalent of which will be the Jewish state in English. This pamphlet was a milestone in the national construction of Zionist Jews, in carrying out the Zionist enterprise in Palestine and the ultimate creation of the State of Israel. 44 years after his death. He died in 1904. It was this Herzlian discourse, this pamphlet, the Jewish state, which he called the Jewish state. It was, according to Lipsky, one of the chapters in the story of Herzl to achieve in 8 years, i.e. between 1886 until his death, 1904, in 8 years, what his people had not been able to achieve in 2,000 years, the power of discourse. Publication of the Jewish State, one of a series of books, variations on the same theme by the same author, was a landmark discursive event, a seminal work of discourse that provided the intellectual basis and a well-defined policy for the foundation of the State of Israel. It was so instrumental in galvanizing action, in galvanizing Zionists worldwide into action, into political action. It was a political document, a propelling force that conceptualized the Jewish question and made it an international problem. Thus, not only did this discourse liberate the spirits of Jews from the ghettos, but also launch international Zionism on its course, eventually establishing a settler Jewish state in the heart of Palestine. The Jewish state gave them hope that there could be something as the Jewish state. Even the very title of Herzl's publication was instrumental. The Jewish state, when they were homeless and they were living in the ghettos in Europe. Discourse laid then down the foundational myth of the State of Israel and has played a major role in its survival until today, using, of course, biblically invoked Zionist myths such as next year in Jerusalem, a land without people for a people without land, the promised land, the historical right, ancient historical connection, biblical land, return to Zion, Eretz Israel, land of Israel, setting an empty land, Palestine, an empty land, and making the desert bloom. Voluntary exodus of about 1 million people in 1948. Voluntary exodus, they just over a cup of tea decided to leave their land. God's chosen people, anti-Semitism, war of independence, 1948, war of independence. 6-day war, Israel has the right to defend itself, and such, myth and such discursive distortions. All these are, of course, nothing but Zionist concoctions. Palestine was only one of a number of proposals Herzl proposed for a national homeland for the Jews. Herzl himself, in this very seminal document, the Jewish state, he proposed a number of countries as a homeland for the Jews. Palestine was only one amongst these proposals. He, for example, proposed the Argentine, which is known for its expanse, fertile land, the Congo. So Palestine was only one amongst other proposals for a Jewish homeland. And so the idea of the spiritual connection or the historic connection, these myths were concocted only after Palestine was made a strategic goal for them. When they decided that Palestine would be the best amongst these proposals, other countries, then they began spinning and concocting myth. So the myth of the historical connection, spiritual ties, the land of Israel, all these were made after Palestine was made, as I said, their strategic option. It was a calculation of possibility, investment and profitability. The Dead Sea, millions of rich minerals, and the location of Palestine in between two main continents. It was a question of it was a calculation of profitability, economics, and investment. Actually, in the words of Herzl himself, in this document I'm talking about, which has been seminal in the construction of the State of Israel, Herzl himself, father of the State of Israel, says that the Jewish question, he said, was neither social nor religious. It was not a religious question. So the idea of a spiritual connection, as I said, or ties, came later after Palestine was made a strategic option as part of a discourse that would pave the way to colonization later on. Another example of the power of discourse is the Balfour Declaration. In our case, the Zionist colonization of Palestine was also made possible by the Balfour Declaration in 1917. Only 67 words. They constituted the foundational stone for modern day Israel. This was, of course, Britain's pledge of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. Now let me move on to the main theme, and that is role of discourse in the decolonization of Palestine, a scriptural perspective. Discourse, as we have seen, is a key to colonialism, but discourse also is a key to the process of getting emancipated from the strictures of exogenous or foreign domination. And so the first step towards social change entails a conceptual and discursive change in discourse. So this could be one of the recommendations. The first step towards any social change requires a conceptual and discursive change in discourse. Colonialism begins with words and begins to end with words. Discourse plays a constitutive role in the ever-going battle of power struggle. Indeed, it is through discourse that political actors create, maintain, assert, or resist social conditions or the status quo. Discourse plays a major role in shaping beliefs which affect people's behavior, motivations, desires, and fears, and establishing certain ideologies as common sense. The power of language. Language is part of discourse. Discourse is a wider concept. It includes anything that can signify, any semiotic system, any sign can signify meaning, images, pictures, clothes, buildings. So the term discourse is more appropriate than language, because language, though being the ultimate Semitic system, I understand, but language is part of discourse. Discourse can mean any signifying, as I said, clothes, buildings, images, etc., etc. Discourse played a significant role in the conception and the creation of Israel, as we have seen. But similarly, discourse, God willing, will act as the first step in ending this settler colonialist regime. It will precipitate or pave the way to the termination of this occupation, and we can play a role in this precipitation, or the paving of the way to the extermination of this colonialist regime in Palestine by propagating the right discourse, as I shall say in a short while. So let me now go to chapter 17, Bani Israel in the Quran. The title of my presentation is the role of discourse in the decolonization of Palestine, a scriptural perspective. And I said scriptural rather than Quranic because this was also mentioned in the Torah more than 3,200 years ago. The Quran being the last revelation is not in contradiction with earlier revelations or divine messages. Chapter 17, known as Al-Isra or the children of Israel, spells out the future of Israelis for whom God had decreed in the book, the Torah, at the time of Moses, 2 periods of iniquity or tyranny where they would spread corruption on earth and be elated with mighty arrogance. So God decreed for the children of Israel 2 periods of iniquity where they would spread corruption and be mighty and arrogant. And accordingly, twice would they be punished, following each period of corruption and hubris or haughtiness. So let's go quickly through these now 4 verses, beginning from verse 4 in chapter 17. And we warned the children of Israel in the scripture, you will certainly cause corruption in the land twice, and you will become extremely arrogant. This was, as I said, God told humanity about this at the time of Moses in the Torah. We know it as Muslims from the Quran. The next verse, 5, when the first of the 2 warnings then, the 2 periods of iniquity, would come to pass, we would send against you some of our servants of a great might who would ravage your homes. This would be a warning fulfilled. So, the first period, when the first period of iniquity, of arrogance, of corruption came or come, God would send against them some of his servants who would, destroy them. Historically, this period of iniquity, the first period, took place after the death of Prophet King Solomon, when corruption started following the division of the kingdom amongst the children of Israel. So this was the first period. The one who destroyed this tyranny was the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II, who in 5.
Dr. Ala, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but actually time limits, so please, watching time is so important. I may give you a chance, but we have one of the guests here who is busy right now and wants to leave, so it is Dr. Sarah. So can I have some of your time for her before she leaves? And I'm actually so sorry for interrupting you. Is it possible just to take like 3 minutes or so?
Fine, Dr. Jabir. I'll continue after that. Fine.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Dr. Sarah Roy, the floor is yours. So, Dr. Sarah.
Hi. Well, I wasn't aware that I was going to be speaking, and it's been a very interesting discussion. I would just like to make 2 points. One is there is in the West now, and there has been for some time, an opening an opening to the Palestinian perspective, and this has been ongoing for many years. As one of the speakers said, during the first Intifada, truly, Palestinians were given a voice in the West, and the media coverage here at that time, I remember it very clearly, was one that we hadn't, that the American public certainly hadn't heard before. Palestinians were given a voice. They were seen as people under oppression who were resisting. I remember, I believe it was on the ABC Evening News, which was one of the major news networks here. Peter Jennings, who was then the anchor, compared Israel's treatment of the Palestinians to South Africa's treatment of a black population. And I believe, although I may be mistaken, but I believe he even used the word apartheid at that particular time, which was stunning in the American context. And over time, you know, this is obviously waxed and waned, but Palestinians, the Palestinian voice and the use of words of discourse is very important. And I think it's also crucial to understand that in the context of the United States, and I can only speak about America at this point, the space has opened up considerably over the last 25 years. And there has been a lot of pushback among certain groups. In fact, some of the most dramatic changes in this country have occurred within the progressive Jewish community. And when I began this work, 30 plus years ago, there was very little context for speaking critically of Israeli policy, of the, and exposing the issues of occupation and the impact of occupation on Palestinians. Today, it's a very mainstream topic. And over time, and there are many, many reasons this has changed, why the space has opened up, the discourse has widened. And it's true that the media has been behind in that respect, but again, it goes up and down. And in fact, this most recent horror in Gaza, we have seen an opening or a widening in very mainstream publications like the New York Times that is absolutely stunning. And in fact, I want to show you, I don't know if you can see it, but on Friday, the front page of the New York Times had pictures of the children, the Palestinian children and the 2 Israeli children who were killed during the war. And inside, there's a discussion of these children and who they are and what their aspirations were and what not. Again, much work still needs to be done, but I want people to understand that through great effort on the part of many different individuals, groups, organizations, in the Jewish community here, outside the Jewish community, in academia, in the public sector, among churches and some synagogues and other civil society organizations that have supported the rights of Palestinians and advocated for a resolution to this conflict that would allow both peoples to live as equals in whatever political arrangement they choose. That has been and continues to be very, very important and increasingly prominent. And there are many reasons for that. The internet was a key factor in allowing people to access information on a wide scale. You had many public intellectuals in this country who were advocating and speaking on behalf of Palestinians or for Palestinian human rights, and that continues. So I just want people to be aware of that. And all the issues raised here about the use of language, very, very, very important and very astute and correct. I would say that it is very important, I think, when Palestinians speak, when you address the media, or when the media contacts you, that you confront them in the same way, that you challenge them in the same way that you've spoken here. Force them to confront the use of language and get them to question or to try to see how they're using language in a way that is distorting and that misrepresents the reality. I think, I'm not a journalist, but my sense is that there is more and more of an opening among journalists, at least here, to that. And it is essential, in my view, that people confront, whether it's me or you or anyone else, that journalists are forced to question their use of language. It's not enough for us to just critique it in this forum or in other forums, but I think it has to be brought back to journalists. That's one thing. And the other thing, the other point I would make is that in the American context, it is important to speak about your conflict, speak about your issues in terms that resonate with Americans. And that is happening more and more as well. The use of human rights, democracy, civil rights, freedom from oppression, freedom from domination, using terms, language, words that Americans can relate to. And that I've seen more and more in the last 2 weeks in terms of the opinion pieces that have appeared and many of the statements that have been made. So personally, I think that is, I've said this for quite a while, that Palestinians need to talk in terms of civil rights in ways that people here in the United States can relate to, not just understand, but relate to on an individual and on a collective level. So I'll leave it at that.
Great, thank you very much, Dr. Sarah Roy. Actually, we consider you as one of the intellectuals that are advocating on the behalf of the Palestinian people, and you are really, because of your, stance, because of your, your opinions and defending the Palestinian cause. So thank you very much, and if time allows you, then stay with us. It is our pleasure. So thank you very much, and back to you, Dr. Ala. Within 5 minutes, will you just please complete your talk?
So let me skip then the first warning or period of iniquity, because this took place. Yep. Can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me now?
Will you unmute your? Yeah. Will you unmute your?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me, Doctor? Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, now we can.
All right.
Sorry
let me move on to the second period of iniquity. The first period ended in 586 BC at the hands of King Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king, who took the Israelites into Babylonian captivity. Then God says, I'm talking from Scripture, then we gave back to you a return victory, the Israelites, and we reinforced you with wealth and sons and made you more numerous in manpower. The triangle of power: wealth, media, and Israel can mobilize all its nationals within half an hour. If you act rightly, it is for your own good, but if you do wrong, it is your own loss. Then when the final, meaning the second, warning came, we raised the new enemies against you and allowed them to disgrace you utterly. 1, 2, and to enter the masjid, i.e. the temple or in Jerusalem, and the 3, as they entered it the first time, and the 3, to destroy what they had taken over with total destruction. And so when we look at the second warning or period of iniquity for the children of Israel, when it comes to punishment, the end of this tyranny, we see three steps as mentioned in the Quran. The first of which is to disgrace you utterly. When the second warning comes, we would raise against you enemies who would disgrace you utterly. Second, they would enter the mosque and finally, destroy this arrogance. So here I am concerned about the first step in the destruction of this, colonialist regime, and that is discourse. Because how else can we disgrace them or disfigure their faces? This is a discursive step. Before the military step, it's a discursive step. And so discourse constitutes the first step to the liberation of Palestine, where we're going to disfigure their faces, discursively exposing their ugliness, their criminality, their ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people, and apartheid to the world. Israel's image is already deteriorating, thank God. And the recent latest act of ethnic cleansing, genocide against the besieged Gaza Strip, has proven a turning point in the perception of Israel in the world. More spaces, the US and others, as Dr. Sarah Roy has said, opening, widening. Therefore, the recommendations, since the first step is discourse, we would disgrace you, we would disfigure your faces, meaning we would show the true image of you as colonialists, as criminals, as a settler state, not the image that you propagate, not the image that you, the misleading image that you disseminate using media and discourse. Therefore, the recommendations, we need, as Palestinians first, and any free citizen in the world, we need to forge and sustain a new discourse. We need to expose their fallacies. We need to demythologize and demystify the origin of this colonial conflict. As I have mentioned, the Herzlian myth, the historical connection, the spiritual ties or lies rather, and to propagate and the legitimate struggle of the Palestinian people to propagate worldwide an anti-occupation discourse, a free Palestine discourse, a discourse defined in terms of an ongoing ethnic cleansing at the hands of a settler, colonialism, and a brutal military occupation. We need to propagate these terms. We need to create a discourse at discourse level, the right conception and perception of the Palestinian question, especially when we represent it to the world. We need to propagate the Palestinian question as a colonial conflict. By the way, not conflict. Sadly, even the very title of this seminar, we say conflict. It is not a conflict implying two equal powers like the US and Russia, for example. It's a colonial conflict rather than a conflict per se. A colonial struggle, an anti-occupation struggle based on ethnic cleansing, occupation, and hate or Zionist hate, apartheid. We need to disseminate the theme of ethnic cleansing and apartheid in place of signifiers and representations or misrepresentations that we, sadly, the Palestinians have been using for since the first ethnic cleansing in 1948. Take, for example, as I always say in such contexts, until now we say Nakba, and we translate it into catastrophe. How would the German recognize catastrophe? Catastrophe implies a natural disaster, like a tsunami, an earthquake. It does not denote or connote the man-made crimes of ethnic cleansing Israel perpetrated in Palestine in 1948 and the ongoing massacres. We call again Naksa, and we translate it to setback. What is setback? A reversal in one's circumstances or fortunes. It does not again denote the act of ethnic cleansing that took place in 1967. We still call, we need to replace these signifiers or misrepresentations to representations that work, to representations that call a spade a spade. We do not need anyhow to garnish or embellish or exaggerate our question or suffering. It is already big enough, loud enough, but we just need to represent rightly. We, the Palestinians, have failed to represent our suffering at the level of discourse. We have failed to represent our suffering at the level of discourse, so this needs to be reconstructed. At the end, I would like to call upon every Palestinian, every Muslim, and every free citizen of the world who champions justice and an end to all forms of colonialism, discrimination, racism, and apartheid, not to miss the opportunity of taking part in this noble national and supranational liberation project by being one of those tools of God, your creator and my creator, working on the discursive construction or exposition of the true image of Zionism, of Israel as an occupier and colonizer. Public opinion nowadays, thank God, as mentioned by colleagues, is not shaped by mainstream media, no longer. It's rather shaped by you and me, shaped online by social media. And so everyone can take part in this anti-occupation struggle. Everyone has a smartphone. You can disseminate the truth while you are at home. The battle of public opinion in the 21st century takes place online. Work through your expertise and efforts on disseminating Israeli lies, myth, fallacies, and the propaganda. Be amongst the pioneers to expose the only extant or remaining colonialist apartheid regime in the world today, the only remaining one. Be among the ones to hasten the second step towards liberation by bringing the first step, that of the exposition of the real ugly image of Israel as nothing but a settler, colonialist, apartheid state. Not everyone can be a soldier. Not everyone is going to participate, in military. But we can participate in this struggle, anti-occupation struggle, as I said, by by trying to represent the truth, as I have mentioned. Have a role then in the propagation of the Palestinian question, not as an Israeli-Palestinian conflict, as I have said. Have a role in the propagation of the Palestinian question, not as an Israeli-Palestinian conflict or a confrontation, as mentioned by my colleagues, Dr. Wissam and the other professors, Amro, not as a confrontation between Hamas and Israel, reducing this colonial conflict to Hamas is a fallacy. Anyhow, Hamas was created in 1988. The occupation took place in the 1940s, so decades before the creation of Hamas. And Hamas is a decolonization movement, a liberation movement. But anyhow, the Zionists or the enemy would utilize or brutalize language in a way that would, misrepresent reality, in ways that would, meet their ideological, political interests. But we have to be as aware. Just less than a minute, Doctor. And so have a role in the propagation of the Palestinian question, as I said, as a colonial conflict, a colonial struggle, an anti-occupation struggle based on ethnic cleansing and Zionist or Zionist apartheid. Help expose Israel worldwide as a settler apartheid state, a brutal military occupation. Call for a free Palestine. Call for a free Palestine. Call for a free Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, my dear colleague and my dear friend, Dr. Aladdin Assaiqeli, the prominent scholar and writer, the prominent,
Thank you, Dr.
free thought person, broad-minded person, like all of you actually. We are pleased to listen to you as more and more. But it is time limits, and we give you, I guess, enough time. So we are sorry for interrupting you many times. Now, actually, I'm sorry for Ms. Taghrib. Ms. Taghrib was raising her hand from the very beginning of this seminar. Is she back? Is Taghrib back? I don't think so. Right. Okay, so we are sorry for her. She was waiting for a long time, but she left because she's busy doing something else. Anyways, here I will give the chance for like 3 minutes for Mr. Muhammad Abu Shawish. He has a word to say. Muhammad Abu Shawish is, Muhammad Hamad Abu Shawish is working in an American school in Turkey, and he used to work as a translator. As well, he worked for the International Red Cross Committee here in Palestine as a volunteer, and in Turkey, he was like a part-time worker for the Red Cross Committee. The floor is yours, Mr. Muhammad.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. First of all, I would like to thank you and everybody who are doing this amazing job. Also, I would like to thank Al-Quds University for hosting such kind of amazing, thing that at least made us to speak and make our words capable to the whole world. I'm not going to take more than 3 minutes because I have a lot of things I want to talk about it, but because time is not our friend at the time, so I'm going to make it as soon as I could, short. I would love to talk about media as, resistance. Well, during the previous days where Gaza was under attack, we noticed that a lot of people use media in a very large and way. It was very amazing that people got access to the internet. This is something amazing. Even though during the bombing, I noticed that a lot of people did a lot of videos, put it on internet, and a lot of people saw it. And one of my friends sent me a video live during the hit in the area when I was living at during the things when I was living in Gaza. Media and social media has a very important, role in showing the reality, what it means to reach the real people and the people who really knows where to put this information or these, videos or the things that should reach a lot of people all over the world. I don't want to talk about how social media affected us, negatively, and this is something very bad, unfortunately. I want to mention the names of applications or channels or things, but I'm going to talk generally about it because we noticed that a lot of people got blocked during the things that happened. A lot of people got their contents got deleted. So in such kind of circumstances, I'm going to talk about the most important things, which is recommendations, just to put books on that scene. First of all, as Mr. Islam already mentioned about making academics all over the world to put an agenda to allow people all over the world to see and know what happened. So national and international efforts should be exerted just for one reason, to make the whole world know what is going on and what happened exactly, and maybe in the future it's going to happen. Nobody knows, because every few years we are noticing that these attacks and massacres happening all over Palestine. So the first thing, we have to exert a lot of efforts just to let the world know what is going on and to show the real people in the Western society and all over the world what is really happening, so that they can spread our point of view to the whole world. Also, the second thing, which is we need full demand of the freedom of social media, because this is very important. As I talked previously about it, that social media applications and those who are working on it, they tried many times to block and delete contents of a lot of people who showed the reality to the world. I'm not going to take too much. I'm going to finalize with supporters of Palestinians cause alongside with the oppositions or the opposition people in those societies. They should at least help spread, explain, illustrate our point of view to their people, to their communities, because we are noticing that misleading stereotypes and information is spreading all over the Western society, and this is affecting us so badly, unfortunately. So at least to show them the reality by giving them the exact thing that happened, and those people, our supporters, those who believe in our cause, the Palestinian cause, at least they can separate all the realities in their societies to help us at least show what is really happening instead of the misleading information, misleading stereotypes that is taking place not just only in Muslim societies but all over the world. Thank you so much for it. I don't want to take much time, that's why I kept it very short and really appreciate it.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad. Actually, really appreciate it. The recommendations you came up with are so fruitful and so important, and of course will be considered. Here on the chat board, I guess there is Randa Qadada. She has very interesting comments. Randa, you can use the mic, and Randa is one of the members of Al-Mutamayyizun, the distinguished group of people, which actually I'm honored to be one of the members of this group. So Randa, I guess she's posing a question, but you can use the mic yourself and pose the question to whoever you like. Randa? Is Randa with us?
Yes, hello.
Okay, hi.
Everyone. I suppose all of read. There is a lot of things I want to ask, I want to see, but really many of questions came on this mind. I want to say, or I always ask, the question is, the question I have is, do we see if the social network site were present in 48? Did the Nakba happen? Was the occupation able to advance a span of land in Palestine? I suppose if a network has been in that area.
Excuse me, Randa. Who are you posing your question for?
To everyone, the world, all the members of the world, to the law member in the world.
Okay, so will you come again, please? Will you repeat the question once more, Randa?
That's, yeah. Yep. No.
Yes, Randa, your voice is not that clear. So will you please repeat the question if possible? Okay, so I guess her question was on if the discourse that is used by Palestinians, or if the social networking sites were present in the 48, did the Nakba happen? was the occupation able to advance a span of land in Palestine? So this was the question, and I guess it is Dr. Ala or Dr. Wissam who's going to answer the question. But we will give you chance later. But let us listen to everybody here and give chance to everybody who are interested in asking or in commenting. So thank you very much, Randa. Your question is clear, and we will pose it to Dr. Alauddin first, and if time serves, then we will give chance to Dr. Wissam. But anyways, right now, are there any speakers who would like to comment or to ask particular questions to the speakers, or you know, who want to comment on particular thing, or who want to recommend something? So please raise your hand. Yes, Muhammad Khalifa.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay, so
sorry for interrupting, Dr. Jabir.
okay.
Thank you very much. So let me at the beginning introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Khalifa. I'm from Palestine, from Gaza.
Welcome.
And I have been living in Turkey for 3 years, in Istanbul. Okay. And also I want to thank all the presenters, Dr. Alauddin, Dr. Islam, and Dr. Sarah, the ones who present and who support our
Dr. Wissam as well.
Dr. Wissam, sorry about the names. I just want, my question is actually it's a little bit mixed, because it's talking about the whole presenters. At the beginning, Dr. Wissam talked about how the Western media explained our issue. He said that Hamas wanted to eliminate Israel, and Israel wanted to defend itself. Okay, and it's a very important point. From the other hand, Mr. Alauddin, he talked about the importance of Theodor Herzl and the role for him for establishing what we call the Israel. Okay, and actually my question is, according to what's happening nowadays, and you know that our issue is in the mainstream right now for all the social medias, all the topic, like whenever you see the channels, and for what Dr. Sarah showed us, the newspaper, the Times newspaper, we saw the 63 children who murdered during the last attack on Gaza. My question is, what are the logical steps? What are the logical and serious steps that we can do as a normal people, as normal Palestinian people, to raise our issue, to raise our question, to raise our Palestinian case, to get it wider and wider, and to show to the entire world where is our rights. These people, they need a very strict punishment, the Israeli people. You know that you are going to ask me, you have to use the social media, you have to post, you have to do everything in your social media, because this is the extremely thing that you can do. Because I don't have a gun, I'm not a soldier. So my duty is just to post and to show the people what is happening in Palestine and what is still here. So actually, so this is my question. Like whenever we are posting, whenever we are writing on Facebook and all the social media, Jewidizing lands and the lobby of Israel and the ethnic cleansing is still found. So we need logic and serious steps. So what are these steps? How we can raise our issue to get wider and wider? This is my question. Thanks to all of you, and Sorry for interrupting.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
Mr.
Muhammad Khalifa. Most welcome. Actually, you are posing a very crucial question.
Thank you.
And I guess the question you are posing needs, days and days of work. So, but it is a question posed for everybody, not only for the presenters, but for everybody. So thank you very much for your question. It is for everybody, right? Thank you.
Yeah. It's
Great, thank you. I guess here, is there somebody else who would like to comment or to raise a question? Mr. Mahmoud Abu Shawish. Do you have something to say for the audience? And Mahmoud Abu Shawish is an engineer, is my uncle, and actually he is one of the strong and actually solid advocates of the Palestinian cause in France and everywhere. So the floor is yours, my uncle.
Okay, assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. Really, I'm very pleased to hear you, all of you. I would like to say a few words. First of all, I would like to express my thanks to Al-Quds Open University and to the whole presenters. Just I would like to say, I'm living in France for the last 6 years. The most important things we have to know, and I'm sure that all of us knows, that the Western media is completely controlled by the Zionists. Then, once we address some message, we have to select our message very well. We have to talk in a very positive way. We have to clear our idea. Yes, the matter, it is not a conflict between the Palestinian and the Israeli. It is a conflict between the occupied army and a people who are under occupation since more than 73 years. Then our message should be clearly to those who believe in democracy, to those who believe in human rights, to those who believe in liberty. The 2021 is completely different than 1948. The world is changed, and we have to change our words also in order to send a clear message. I would like to thank you, all of you, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Uncle Engineer Mahmoud Abu Muhammad. So thank you. Actually, your presence is the big fruit of this meeting. So thank you very much, sir. Yes, other presenters, other askers. Somebody.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Yeah, your name.
First of all, I am Abdul Mujib Khan, and I'm from Kashmir, and I've been living in Malaysia. Actually, you are the owner of your name. Occupied your name, and they are years ago. they destroy, it's painful to see all these things. But I am quite optimistic that this time the international community is the social media and the
Dear sir, actually, it is hard for us to hear your voice clearly. So, will you just repeat what you have already said, starting from your name, please? Would you repeat, please, because we are concerned and interested with what you say. You are most welcome. Okay. So because time, as Muhammad mentioned, time is not our friend today, I'm moving to somebody else. So someone, is there anybody who'd like to ask a question or to comment? Because we might give chance for 2 or 3 commentators or askers right now. Afterwards, we will give chance to Mr. Dr. Ala and Dr. Wissam to answer some of the audience questions. Okay, so seems we are done with questions and comments. Okay, I guess Dr. Wissam Shawa is with us. So, Dr. Wissam, do you have a word to say? Dr. Wissam Shawa from Gaza branch, Al-Quds Open University, Gaza branch. Do you have something to say?
First of all, can you hear me?
Sure, we can, yes. So
I highly appreciate this chance and this meeting. Actually, it was an interesting meeting, and I highly appreciate all the ideas presented, and the ideas and the views, and everything in this meeting was helping in clearing or widening the understanding of the Palestinian issue, in particular the media that presented in New York, and the pictures of the young Palestinians who were killed by the Israelis, and how the point of view of people are going to change concerning the Palestinian issue and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I don't have questions, but I really appreciate this meeting and your ideas, Dr. Jabir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wissam, and we highly appreciate your participation and your presence. So thank you very much. Okay, so seems that we have no more questions or comments. So in this case, we will give like 5 minutes for each speaker to comment or to answer the questions, and I will start with Dr. Wissam, who was waiting for a long time with us. So Dr. Wissam.
All right, thanks a lot, Dr. Jabir, again for organizing this event, and thanks for our colleagues and speakers. I was really happy to hear their views and opinions. also their discussions for the issue from different angles, from different dimensions. Actually, regarding the social on regarding the on social media, if we had social media in 1948, what the Nakba happened. Um, I don't know actually, because of course, or there's no doubt that social media has turned um, the interest and the attention to the social, to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and to the Israeli aggression against our people so much. Actually, social media, even though there is a big censorship, has made a turning point in expanding our vision, our opinion, our views to the world. Uh, if just a quick comparison among the three wars which I have studied, the Israeli war in 2008 and 9, the Israeli war in 2014, and the latest or the recent Israeli aggression. Um, if we just compare quickly what happened regarding social media and how social media helped us, in 2008 and 9 war, there was no mostly social media. So the vision, at that time I was in England, and I could say not much attention was paid to the Israeli aggression against our people in 2008 or 2009. Mostly people, Western people, relied on TV, on what they hear, what they see, and what they watch on the screens regarding, and of course, as I have explained in my talk, the portrayal, the representation of the conflict was really misleaded and was forced, was not, or did not actually reflect the reality. In 2014, it was for me a starting point to make a new turning to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, where people could see at that time live images from Gaza directly. People here posted many photos, many images, talking about events, even in Arabic at least. Some people could give some hints regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In the latest aggression, as you can see, there is a big turning point towards the Palestinian views, understanding. People in the West, I don't want to say all the people, but at least the Western people could challenge the traditional representation of the conflict, the traditional mainstream media coverage of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, or mainly the Israeli aggression against our people. Of course, maybe it's not really strange, but the coronavirus or the pandemic has helped us much indirectly, because people in the West, mainly let's say in Germany or in the UK, as far as I talk to friends, they stayed at home. And then they use their time to watch TV, they watch news and channels and here and there. So, and of course, they relied on social media. I got many messages personally to ask me about what happened in Gaza. So on the personal level, as like with friends, also in my involvement or engagement with different organizations in Germany or in the UK, I got many questions from academics, from researchers, from journalists this time actually, from anchors asking about what happened in Gaza. The reality, they got interest to ask about what happened in Gaza. We got like some politicians ask about details, and they ask about the reality on the ground and what they see on social media platforms, mainly on Twitter. In Palestine, we are interested actually in Facebook. We mostly use Facebook for social interaction, for engagement, and of course for political aspects. But in the West, they focus on Twitter, which is more, say, more official. The latest or the recent aggression has been really well documented on social media, where pictures and videos of the Israeli attacks were widely shared, and some have referred to these targeted attacks on Palestinians as pogrom. While these attacks appear particularly violent, they are neither, of course, they are not neither new or nor isolated incidents. So people tried, after seeing this on social media, they tried to link the historical events together with what happened recently. Of course, social media companies, mainly Facebook, or have social media platforms, or companies have limited the freedom of expressions for Palestinians. There is a lot of censorship regarding the content shared by Palestinians. As far as the Israeli-Palestine, I don't want to say Israel-Hamas, but as the ceasefire agreement holds, social media platforms, including Facebook and Instagram, continue to come under fire. There is a lot of criticism against social media platforms, mainly Instagram and Facebook, which are mostly used in Palestine. And this is because of the censorship of pro-Palestinian content. Of course, the social media platforms have blocked many Palestinian accounts, or they do not release the Palestinian content, or they put some restrictions and limitations on Palestinian contents. So in times of conflict, any kind of censorship by major platforms can, of course, erase evidence of state-sanctioned evidence, or sanctioned violence, actually, human rights abuses, and potential war crimes against innocent civilians. So as much as the social media platforms or the companies have bought censorship, they hide the reality, they hide the truth, they hide facts. And this is particularly concerning as evidence of brutality, evidence of violence on social media can often be the only form of testimony that holds false narratives, false or misleading discourse, misleading information, and mass denial of human rights abuses to account. Here I just would like to, again, shed light on the importance of...
One final word, Dr. Wissam. I
Yeah,
announced
sure.
5 minutes, but I gave 8 minutes. So.
Okay. All right. Oh, sorry. Okay. So this is actually, as Palestinians, we should turn our attention to the social media. Regarding Muhammad Khalifa's question, what should we do to widen the attention of Western media to our cause or to our issue? I think we have to answer such a question. We need to two dimensions. One is to understand factors that lead or make this Western media fails to cover Palestine with accuracy and empathy. And of course, we need actional or procedurally planned for the reasons why why the Western media fails to cover the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in accurate way. I think the asymmetrical nature of the situation, underlying the fact that it's not a conflict between equals. We should not make the Israeli and Palestine are two equal powers. we defend ourselves because of the Israeli actions. We respond to the Israeli aggression or to the Israeli attacks. Also, the increasingly open relations between Israel and other countries across the Middle East, as we know, it's the normalization between Israel and Arab countries. And of course, this improves the image of Israel in the West. Another reason is, quickly, if you allow me, the political orientation of the newspapers or of the Western media outlets. There is alignment in media outlets with the foreign policies of the countries. I can't say there is much separation between between media outlets and foreign policy. If we compare Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC, these media channels or these space channels reflect the foreign policy of their countries. So it's not an issue of objectivity, rather than it's a way of political orientation. Last word, I would like to say what action that should be taken. I think we should insist the historical context, which enables the readers, listeners, or viewers to understand the conflict. In our speech, in our talks, in our writings or reports, we should highlight the historical context. Also, we need to encourage our friends, I mean foreign friends or international friends, to take actions, to take economic actions by implementation of boycott, divestment, and initiatives, like to join BDS network or movement. Also, joining national and or international networks is very important to show support. Also, I think every Palestinian should should act or behave as an ambassador for the Palestinians. Be an advocate. Talk to media, media outlets, organizations, organize public events, write to newspapers, write editorials, write pieces of opinion. But again, we should be careful with the language used in such reports or in such talks. Thank you so much, Dr. Jabir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wissam, for for putting things in a nutshell. Actually, yeah, those are procedures to be taken into consideration, and we collect all these recommendations. And actually, there is Dr. Sarah who promised to spread those on her Facebook page, and actually everybody is going to share these recommendations, because we would like that this seminar to come up with something practical, something on land here, on the ground. So the floor is yours, Dr. Aladdin. Within 5 minutes, please, because the audience are, started, to get a little bit bored. So please, thank you.
Well, actually, I am myself actually beginning to doze off. It's almost midnight here in Malaysia.
Really?
In Malaysia, yes. So I usually go to bed, early.
بركة دكتور حلال يعطيك العافية.
Thank you, Dr. Wissam. Where was I? To begin with, our sister's hypothetical question: had social media been there in 1948, would the State of Israel, this criminal colonialist regime, had existed in the first place? My answer to this, I would say, is that discourse, sister, does not prevent colonialism. For that, you need an equal or a countervailing military force to prevent colonialism. But what discourse does is that discourse can help end colonialism. can be the first step in ending colonialism. It won't prevent colonialism, language, discourse, but it would expedite if people are conscious, if people are language conscious, conscious of, the very purpose of this seminar is to raise this kind of consciousness. It's a consciousness raising global webinar. As the Quran says, the first step in this three-step liberation process, as I understand from chapter 17, is discourse. You would disfigure their faces. Our means to disfigure their faces, to this disfigurement, is discourse. To show the world the real image, ugly image, colonialist image. And so, back to the question, for Israel to have existed or not at the time, if we had an equal military force, Israel wouldn't have existed. But since we didn't have, most Palestinians were villages, falahin, until now, by the way. And so discourse does not prevent, but discourse can help end occupation, facilitate, quicken the end to colonization. And this is what we are doing now, and this is what I have stressed, that we need to propagate a discourse that represents the Palestinian question as a colonial conflict, as a legitimate struggle of people under occupation. This leads me now to the second question posed by Mr. Khalifa. What can we do? Serious steps that we can do. Brother, do not minimize your role. Everyone has a role to play and everyone can do something. Not everyone can be a soldier under the tunnels in Gaza. Not everyone can hold a gun for different reasons. But everyone can still participate in this noble national and supranational liberation project. As we have said, public opinion nowadays is not only shaped by mainstream media. Public opinion nowadays is largely shaped online by social media, despite the restrictions imposed by the companies of these platforms. But still, there is a space in which we can act. And we have seen this in the latest Israeli act of ethnic cleansing against Gaza. This international rise, actually, in Europe, in Arab countries, in Muslim countries, in America. And so we do not, as I said, minimize the role of a message that you send, a video that you send. So we still can do something. And God, by the way, God will not ask us about whether we liberated Palestine or not. God would ask us about our effort, what we have done. The result is not our job. The result is God's job. But we have a responsibility and everyone can participate. As I said, the least of this participation, if it is not military, if it is not financial, a mobile phone. And everyone has a mobile phone now. Circulate these images, propagate Israel as an occupier and a colonizer. Forget about terms such as Nakba, as I have said, conflict, confrontation. Be aware of the role language plays in the construction or distortion of reality. Be language conscious. And I am going to end now. Work on the true, as I said, discursive representation of Israel as nothing but a settler apartheid state. This would not only be a religious duty for a Muslim, but also, as I have said, would constitute the first step in the three-step process of liberation. Discourse will be followed by the military action. So we are paving the way to gun-toting men to enter the mosque, hopefully soon. But for the second step to take place, entering the mosque, as as was entered before, entering the masjid. The first step, disfiguring their faces, لِيَسُوءُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ. This سوءة الوجه has to take place first. We can expedite this process, this disfigurement and disgrace of their faces by, as I said, by propagating Israel as an occupier, and what is happening to the Palestinian is a series, a systematic series. What has been happening is a systematic series of acts of ethnic cleansing, beginning with Deir Yassin in 1948, and the latest of which is just a week ago. God bless you. Free Palestine.
I think Dr. Jabber left the meeting or something because he's not here.
Since
Okay, I would like on behalf of Al-Mutamayizun to thank you, all of you. Really, it was a very interesting seminar, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Really
Okay, bye-bye.
I would like to add this afterthought until Dr. Jabber comes back. I always think that the way the Palestinian question has been discursively constructed, is a main reason why we are still suffering, why we are under occupation. As I said, beginning with the label that constitutes the heart of our suffering, Nakba, which is a misnomer, a misrepresentation, and as I said,
Yes,
many other misrepresentation, Nakba, Harb Sijil, Harb Furqan, I don't know. It is not Harb to begin with. These are continuous, systematic, genocidal acts against the Palestinian people, beginning from Deir Yassin, as I said, and the latest of which is still witnessed, visible to everyone. And so, my belief is that the way we have constructed the Palestinian question at the level of discourse is the main reason why we have been suffering and is still suffering. And so the first step, as the Quran draws our attention to, the first step has to be at the discourse level, to propagate, to disseminate Israel as an occupier, and to foreground the themes of ethnic cleansing, apartheid, settler colonialism. These concepts have to be key in our narrative. The whole school curricula, Palestinian school curricula, has to be reformed. It needs to go an overhaul. So with this kind of consciousness, we are, and this propagation, we will facilitate the second step in the process of liberation, and that is entering the mosque, which will be, made by gun-toting men. May God protect them. So we cannot carry weapons the way they carry, but we have another weapon, that of discourse. As much as it is a war in the traditional sense, it is also a war of words. Media war. So we need to capitalize on this. We need to counter the classical Zionist narrative, which is based on myth, which is based on deception, which is based on lies, as I have highlighted, beginning from the foundations of Israel back in the 19th century, the late 19th century, when they chose Palestine to be their strategic option. For Palestine was one amongst other options in that seminal work of discourse by Herzl, the Jewish state. He mentioned other options: the Argentine, the Congo. Dr. Jabir is back, so we give him the mic.
So I'm actually sorry. So thank you very much for Dr. Aladdin for keeping connected with people. Thank you for your nice and informative words and talk, Dr. Ala. Actually, I'm very proud of you all, the presenters. I'm sorry I was disconnected for like a few minutes because of electricity shortage, and I'm back now. Anyways, are there any questions from anybody, so that I guess it is midnight in Malaysia, so it is time for Dr. Ala to go to bed. And it is, almost time for everybody to go for other works. Everybody is busy doing a lot of things here. So thank you very much, the presenters, Dr. Wissam, Dr. Aladdin, Miss Dr. Sarah, Dr. Islam Amro, and everybody. Thank you, the audience, all in their names and titles. Your presence had made this meeting, this gathering, very successful, and inshallah this will encourage us to carry out and to hold other seminars and other workshops.
Before midnight, inshallah.
Thank you very much for joining us and for your crucial and very important talks for the sake of the Palestinian cause.
Really appreciate
Thank you,
it.
and see you in other gatherings, inshallah.
I would like to add something very, very small before we
Mr. Muhammad, please, in haste.
First of all, Dr. Wissam, Dr. Aladdin, thank you so much for your good efforts. I would like to mention something. All the recommendations that we have already got, we would like to put it as one
list.
Yes, list. After this, I'm going to provide you with Dr. Sarah's emails so that you can at least make some kind of contact with her, because she's the one who told us that we have to collect everything and put it together so that we can at least share it with more than thousands of people who are working in media sector, journalists and others. So this way we could at least spread our word to all over the world, because it's very important at least to make the world know about it. At least if we could manage put them in a list so that we can send it to Dr. Jabir or anybody who's interested in collecting things. Already each one of us, we have the recommendation. Just let's gather it and give it. After this, anybody can make the contact. I will provide you, Dr. Jabir, with the email address of Dr. Sarah, so that at least you can have contact with her, full contact all the time.
I will WhatsApp you, Dr. Jabir, my own recommendations.
Thank you. Okay, so you can, and Mr. Wissam and everybody, even the audience, if there are some recommendations, you can send to me, and we will make them in a list and send them to Dr. Sarah, who promised to spread them worldwide. So thank you very much for the distinguished effort for joining us for this afternoon. So thank you, and see you in other gatherings, inshallah.
Thank you so
Freedom to Palestine, inshallah. Freedom
That's
for
right.
Palestine.
Thank you very much. See you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you. Okay. bye.
دكتور علاء يعطيك العافيه دكتور جابر
الله يعطيكم
Inshallah, we will
العافية.
meet one day.
Inshallah, we will, inshallah.
I miss you guys, but والله يا مكة لولا أن أهلك يخرجون منك ما خرجت. This is my.
It is life. We are proud of you, Dr.
Thank
Ala,
you.
and we keep mentioning you in our talks and in our lectures. You are
Thank you.
actually a very prominent person
Thank you, Dr.
who
Jabir.
is non-forgettable. يعطيكم العافية
حياكم.
وتصبحوا على خير جميعا.
حياك.
Good night.
السلام عليكم. Goodbye.
I have to end this meeting.
Recording.